with all that what you learned from them, but also were not happy, did not feel that they really use the language appropriate here in order to evoke this original. And original, I don't mean, you see, the original word, the origin, has getting this bad mouthing, authority thing, etc. But it does not have to be. As Heidegger, in the origin of the work of art at least, try to understand that the productivity itself is here at stake, and not something, after we know it, then everything else is already settled. It's not a settlement thing, because the settling is going on all the time. So in this respect, I really only appreciate and admire the way you use all this teaching, all these words, all these constructs, all these smart people.
Nobody run away.
Yeah, right. but don't believe in them. So just take it away. Yes, to go back to something what your own intuition is, which is more important than all the other things. So the other things may all be true or not true. It's not so important. The only question really, when I want, is really a question: is what kind of language? Is that not? I don't know if it's your feeling, but that any language is the language we know is kind of insufficient. It's lacking, as we say so nicely, but lacking not saying, okay, it's lacking, therefore we will get it. So it might be always lacking. Except a language, we both certainly are drawn by this, a poetic language, but that's a language which is not addressing this. I don't know if there is a poetic or a poem of psychoanalysis possible. If it's possible, yours getting close.
Thank you.
So it is, or if has a poem not really look away, disregard the phenomenon psychoanalysis is talking about in order to have be a contribution to it. Also because the indirectness, as I call it, the indirectness, that is the, my way of thinking, what is the only hope we have, the vagueness and indirectness of language, which might allow that we get the feeling, the intuition of this primary level without having the urge to know the exact 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's the first part, the second, the third part, etc. But again, as you and I do, we are allowing our own language to play enough. We're following them so that we are not really sticking to this one term and so on, so the one term gives birth to another one and so on, and we are happy that they are very different in itself, as long as something is still going on and we are not stopping someplace. And I only hope for you, but I'm sure you will never stop.
Thank you.
Last moment when you die, you will still come up with some
drawing. I will draw.
Okay, so that is again my commentary.
Thank you.
As always, and now I go back to the discussion. Yes.
Could you describe matrixial border space again? Just
we can start again.
Is there any way? Because I missed that.
I'm going to. You know what the easiest thing anyone who's very interested could do is if you go on the internet, on the Google, type my name and type kopoiesis, you're going to fall on one of the essays that I allowed on the internet in one of the journal. And I did my best to put some kind of definition. It's not exactly a definition. But I think just for your needs right now, stick to the idea of partial subjects in a process of co-emergence, and stick to that as a beginning. I and non-I in co-emergence, in co-fading. And whatever it is that is produced as both vibration during the co-emergence and as traces are shareable between these several partial subjects. Okay? So stick to the idea of trans-subjectivity. This is my thesis, is about trans-subjectivity, not intersubjectivity, and not a theory of a self or theory of a subject.
Pointing at a moment in his life where he probably has experienced it.
Yeah, of course. One of my arguments.
Let's start with this.
Yeah, well, it's probably a moment where you are you would be less aware of your, and less defensive of your subjectivity and of your identity, and you give up your identity. There are all kind of states when we do that, how we do that.
And does not remember, that's already a start, you know, because that's also an indication of it.
Yeah.
See, remembrance is very vague with that. You still have a memory, maybe.
But you carry the memory for him.
No, I have Christina?
Okay, just personally, I'm so excited by what you said today. Like, you're the type of feminist that I can be comfortably. But what I was really impressed by was how, instead of treating language as a limitation, you worked within it by adding parentheses, adding a letter to somehow create, you know, a much richer kind of concept. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like, how did you kind of go about that process, right? Like, did you kind of like look at the word, say, like witnessing, right?
No, I can tell you the process, I started a little on that. I had no intention to write theory in my life. I had no intention to become doctor or professor or anything. I don't know how it happened.
That's a good start, yes.
I just came to Paris after I did my master's and I did my psychology thesis, and I was working as a psychologist, and I left everything. I want to be an artist. And I was just taking little notes in my notebooks. For example, metamorphosis. The word arrived in my notebooks and became title of one of my paintings, of a series of paintings, long before I knew what I want to say by that. I didn't know. Matrixial Borderspace is the name of a series of paintings I was doing long before I started to theorize all that. And there was a moment that occurred through encounters, through meeting with other people and so on, that I was invited somehow to articulate better, okay? And the only language I have, theoretically, and the baggage I have is psychoanalysis. So I tried to, I looked in my notebooks and diaries and tried to find what I want to say by that. And it took me a long time to realize that there is a whole theoretical démarche there, which in a sense came all together. Most of my concepts are born in these notebooks and in a painting long before I articulated any of them. There are still some that are waiting. So it's really poetic language, language of the work itself, and it grew. And I started to write seriously, theoretically on the Matrixial after I had to work on a book of my notebooks, also commissioned, asked by another artist, to hide my conversation with him, to print it and to hide it inside my notebooks. And I said, but I don't really have notebooks, this is nothing. And he says, no, it's not nothing, you choose. So I went over my notebooks again and again and again, and I realized there was a whole universe. And then, okay, what do? I go to psychoanalysis and I don't find it. But I find the places where it could have been and was denied. And therefore, all this academic work, each time in each essay where I articulate something, I go back to classical psychoanalysis and I check, I arrive exactly at the point where here he stopped. Here Freud had an intuition and then he moved away. And so it's a kind of working, because I didn't want it to be so idiosyncratic and marginal that it wouldn't exist in the end, it wouldn't have influence. I wanted that all this intuition will take place inside the world of psychoanalysis and make it imploding from within, exploding from within, or whatever, change, make it change. Especially is dear to me the question of, in terms of psychoanalysis, the question of the feminine and